Oh, hey, there you are. And welcome to Dreamy Dreamland. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. And here, my two buddies, the Days. And who are they? 1%, top of the pyramid. The Days. And what? What? Oh, yes. So, they want you to know everything you think you know is wrong, right? First off, all of this Mierda storm, who benefits? Que Nabi, whatever that Latin term is, who benefits, right? Oh, and is it big business, big pharma, big banking, the deep state, Q, Ronald McDonald, who, big pharma, big ag, anybody big, the military, no, the deep state, really, you know, um, continuity of government, COG, that's like the most visible thing, and Dick Cheney and et al. Tried to rework it from what it was designed to be, meaning, the government to, continue after nuclear war. DC gets whacked. All our, legislators are gone. And so somebody's got to, kind of keep things going, right? And, whoops, I'm touching my face. Oh my God. Oh. Well, it's okay if you don't see anybody for the last 2 months. Anyway, what? Okay. So that's COG, And then with Richard Nixon and, Dick Cheney and Rumsfeld being in that scene and seeing what happened, they re-engineered it in the George E. Boy times to be, the deep state. And the deep state was just the closet, being in the closet of the large corporate entities that own everything. We live in a corporate state, right? So, and that's no different than what the CCP, the Communist Chinese Communist Party, their corporate state. They are state capitalism. That's what Russia was. Any oligarchy is state capitalism, right? And as ours is harder to, kind of fend. Okay, yes. Anyway, if you really want to know what's going on, two things. Go to your little smartphone. All of this, came from the slave labor of China. It's not coming anymore. That's broken. We're not buying any more stuff at the Dollar Tree, You better have what you need.
Hi, this is Dark Journalist. It's fantastic to be here with everyone. There's a huge, amazing crowd with us tonight already as we go into X Series episode 85. As usual, I'm joined by the lovely Olivia.
Hi, everybody.
And quite a week, Olivia. Lots of ups and downs. You think things are getting a little better and the Empire Strikes Back. And they definitely went for some pretty deep, just as the sea change was coming in around the Corona shutdown nonsense. Suddenly, we started to see Trump offering to open the country up was essential, and I'm going to get into why tonight. He's looking at May 1st. That's the date we should reopen. It should be actually even sooner, but in terms of what's on the drawing board, that's good. There's a big pushback against that date, and we're going to see why. Tonight's episode is about the deep state coup and the Constitution in crisis. And I think it's important that we all remind ourselves what we're all doing here in a free country in America and around the world. and that these are all experiments in freedom to move freedom forward, and that locking us down does exactly the opposite, and it gives government the ability, after all those gains, to put everyone back in chains and move them around as they see fit and inject them with what they see fit. And these are the things that we need to see in clear contrast to the spirit of the Constitution, which really inspired so many of the kind of freedom movements around the globe that we've seen in over 200 years. So we have to go back and ignite that understanding and apply it against the current situation, as we'll find out many important leaders have done. Now, tonight's going to be, I've grabbed a number of things that have shown up on the radar.
So you need to go check that guy out.
Because this is a major pivot week
Dark journalist,
around the
right?
whole lockdown.
And this show was
kind of
how long ago
deep
was
state
this?
takeover aspect. And we're going to find these things make a lot more sense. In the past few episodes, we've been covering
Time
COG
flies when you're having fun.
and if you've seen Terrence O'Shaughnessy, who is the commander of NORTHCOM, who would be the COG president, if we gave him that ability, that is a continuity of government emergency powers exercise.
Now, this is Cliff High
and they've
on
it
critical thinking. This channel's critical thinking. Q Bene, right? Who benefits?
Studying COG for years.
So let's see. Let's go back.
Energy intensive.
Let's go back.
Sorry about that. Okay, so it's April 11th, 2020, year zero. Today's presentation is the case for space aliens. I'm going to just basically step right through a bunch of stuff that critics are saying and ask some questions, and we can see what's what, where it goes. I don't have a lot of answers. The only thing I know for sure is that I can't find any benefit to anybody with the current shitstorm. Okay, so let's just analyze. Oh, first let me state that this, I don't know if this will actually end up showing up on YouTube or not. The last 3 vids I've put up have not passed processing. They didn't get through. Last 3 interviews I put up with people have been kicked off after processing, presumably. I don't know for sure. Hang on a second. Let's do this.
He likes his big board.
So the point of the video is to discuss the shitstorm, current situation planet-wide, and to ask ourselves, who benefits? Cui bene. I'm all right over here. Okay, so that's why I say the case for space aliens, because I can't find anybody that benefits, because if you just consider some of the ancillaries, the follow-ons, and so on, and come up with some of the questions about each of the potential culprits, so to speak, for the creation of a shitstorm. There's questions that can't be answered or end up contradicting the main thrust of the argument. So, for instance, we have the argument that the deep state did it, right? And we have the argument coming from Q. We have the argument coming around the idea of continuity of government. But the thing is, how does the deep state benefit? Especially if it goes into continuity of government. Okay, let's put a big bang mark right there. The deep state is a balancing act. It exists, but there's no real power there if the deep state is 100% exposed to the normies. Then there would be revolt if everybody understood the deep state as the conspiracy crowd does. Evil incarnate, blah, 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 get a David Icke view of it all. If all of the normies understood the deep state like David Icke, then the deep state is in deep trouble because they can't balance anything anymore. And they've got to come out of their deep state closet. And that's what...
Okay, kids, you get the general drift of it, right? Hey, this is a real problem with the Constitution, which is, at this time, or even from the very beginning, an illusion, and, the deep state started back with our founding fathers. They were the originators of it. And so this thing came out of nowhere. I mean, like he says, no one benefits. It's not like, it's pretty sure that this is an engineered biological weapon, right? It's pretty sure it came out of a lab in Wuhan, right? Pretty sure that it was originated by, American Anglo science, right? From Harvard and from a lab in Canada. And the Chinese bought it from them, meaning they said, hey, we want something like this. And these guys created the backbone of it and then, sold it off to the Chinese. And the Chinese have been playing with it since they got it. And oops, it got out, right? Whether it got out by incompetence is my vote, or whether it was someone in the CCP, because the CCP isn't Jinping or whatever that guy's name is at the top. He's just, again, a poster boy. And whenever you see the Congress, it's this massive room with thousands of people in it, and all those guys got power back home, right? And so they're kind of kept in line by their deep state, right? And yet, someone in that, either through incompetence or just let it out the door, to screw with the CCP, bring it down so they could take it over. But it's nothing you can take over. A massive enterprise like what was going on. First off, you have to realize it came from the likes of Henry Kissinger and the Council on Foreign Relations, Trilateral Commission, and clowns like that. They're the ones who brought us, the World Trade Organization, World Health Organization, all of that, globalized. Mr. Global, as Catherine Austin Fitz. You should go read her. Catherine Austin Fitz talks about, Mr. Global, right? And a good person to read is Joseph P. Farrell, who gives you a very nice historical representation of all of this. And Jordan Maxwell, another guy you should go look at. He basically represents the word. He's really good at telling you what everything means, all the words, why they're used. Why do we go to court and play tennis on a court, right? Especially when the tennis court, you play the game with a racket. That's kind of what the legal thing is. It's playing it with a racket, right? So go check out Jordan Maxwell. And now I'm saying, who benefits? And Mr. High there, which you really, that guy, he looks really out there. And so does our friend from Dark Journalism. But they both are really passionate about what they do. They're both really hyper intelligent. They're both very good at digging up info that you should know about. Not to say they're right, but they have an open mind. And if you go watch the Crow House, Mr. Icon, Mr. Max Icon in Australia. Now, he is another person who kind of puts it together, but not on the same info theoretical point of view. He's more like me. He's coming from his gut. So he's been talking, hey, kids, watch out. There's a dangerous time. They're going to throw you in a cage. Well, we've always been in a freaking cage, right? It's just whether you realized it or not. And if you realize it, then you can navigate, And that's, what I've done my whole life. I pretty much realized this. I've gone through waves of realization. When I was a little munchkin, when that nun beat the ever-living snot out of me and I couldn't talk and I could barely see, I kind of, my other senses kind of clicked in, my spidey sense clicked in, my listening sense really, she didn't hurt my ears. And I kind of said, it's like you get hit by a 2x4 enough, you're going to go, right? And you either do one of things. You either become a junkyard dog, you respond negatively to all input, or you step way back and you watch what's going on and you get what is known as a general perspective, right? So I did that at 6, 7, 8, right? And then what kept happening to me, when I was born, I was murdered by these knuckleheads, and they were pushed aside, and this savior it's like Easter. It was like I came out of the cave alive. I was dead, but then I was alive. And I was brought out by the love of this doctor, female doctor, not too many of them around in 1950. And she saved my friggin' life. She knew exactly what to do, because she had a uterus. She knew that I was a breech baby. These morons were trying to pull me out with salad tongs and, pop my head because my umbilical cord was wrapped around my head. And I was like, right? So, right then and there. And so she saved me, and she brings me away from those morons to a place where she puts me into an incubator, which they didn't even have. It was something she was fooling around with. And she put me on IV drip so I, wouldn't, die of shock. And, she did a number of things to kind of bring me back, which she did, right? Then my grandma shows up and says, wow, you really know what you're doing, kid. You're one of us. And she goes, I'm a woman of the woods, crone, They have, in Italy, they call them different, they don't call them crones, they call them something else. But it's that same crew. These crews have been around for a long time. That's why I'm saying, hey, this is year zero, meaning we're going back 26,000 years. The Anunnaki are coming back. You guys are screwing it up so bad. We're like here to, and those guys, they have their own business plan, right? We have to, when the ETs show up, we have to question, what do they benefit from help? Because they're going to say, oh, we're going to help you out. We're going to, feed everyone, get everyone on the right path and blah, 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 right? So remember, to serve man, it's a cookbook. That's a Rod Serling tip of the hat. I just learned that Rod Serling wrote the script to, the ape movies, Planet of the Apes, right? He wrote that, and that's why, what's his name? I got my gun in my dead hand, whatever that moron's name is. He played that character for the first, time out, maybe the second time out, maybe the third time out. But the first time out, originally was written by Mr. Twilight Zone, right? And that's why Mr. Gun in his dead hand, I like this guy. This is interesting. And he went from being a handsome guy to, sci-fi. He did that, and then he did the Omega Man, and then he did, Agent Orange is people, So here we are, 18 minutes, right? And the sun is just, we had a really nasty storm, and again, thank the Lord, it was Easter. Thank you, Lord. It was also the high holy Hebrew days. Thank you, Lord, right? I put some lamb's blood on the door. And and in this time, that's kind of what you need, lamb's blood on the door. So before things, really go, zombie apocalypse, ET is going to show up, right? And we're ready for it. We've had every moron, Billy Boy, Junior, Sambo. I'm going to get some heat on that one. But there are only two people watching. But in actuality, Obama was Sambo, really, really, really. He was working for Master. You Master. I remember seeing Obama, he bombed more people than a junior did, and put more evil in place, and you name it, he did it. And you know, I realized this again, another wave. ABC, I don't know if they're ever going to do it again. I don't know if we're ever going to have another president again after what's just gone down with Carrot Head, and because no matter what he says, even his most when they're losing their jobs and unemployment right at 16%, forget that, it's like 30%. 16% is the only people who could get through the server, right? Who they I went to Social Security when this first happened. I mean, like in February, and they had closed, saying, "Oh, due to the enormity of the collapse, we're not going to be here," right? And try to get them on the phone. Forget about it, right? So I was just wondering, when my check was going to be in the mail. Gil Scott Heron wrote a great song about that. How people are waiting from the man from Washington to give them their 40 acres and a mule. I mean, people are still waiting for that, And that was, the Great Society. That was the joke of LBJ, I mean, we had this one guy who was, a gangster's son. He was the wimp of, not the wimp, but the the one that is of the litter. He's the least healthy, least strong, least good looking. That was JFK, and when he got to that position, he went off to war. I mean, so did Nixon. So did LBJ. How about Carrot Head? And Nixon, he was out there in the Pacific, and along with Jack was in the Marianas, in these little islands where the Japs had a few islands and we had a few. And we didn't really go at each other. We just kind of did this. And Jack didn't go into attacking anything. He was on he saw his PT boat as his own, speedboat, and he was zipping from where he was, this island, and he was like McHale's Navy, and he was going across to see the nurses on the other island over there have a party. And he was running without his lights on, and the Jap destroyer was running with his lights off. And so both were running dark, and there was no moon, and that destroyer just ran right over him. Didn't even see him. Just Jack's boat's made out of plywood, and about, 100 feet long, if that, probably 80, 90 feet long. 2 diesels, and freaking destroyer, Jack's boat to place maybe 3 tons, destroyer displaced 100 tons made out of steel, like butter, chainsaw through butter. And that was Jack's boat, and he was a hero in that he didn't just go save himself like George H. did. George H., he was in the secret society, and he, graduates early from Yale and becomes a Navy man, and is on an aircraft carrier flying, one of their, I don't even know what, but they're really a lousy airplane made by Grumman. 3 guys on it. Maybe has a torpedo, maybe has a few bombs, but it's a little thing, right? Anyway, so they go to bomb some non-important Japanese thing off the aircraft carrier. And the Zeros come up and get him, and they don't shoot him down. They just put a few holes in him, and he's starting to lose gas, right? And so he says, "Okay, guys, and there's this line, right? If you fall behind the line, the Japs get you, never seen again. Paul, on this side of the line, the submarines are out there, and they're riding with their antenna up, and they're hearing the chatter, so they'll come and get you, right? So." This was an assignment given to him by, the hidden hand to sacrifice. He had to do a blood sacrifice. However it would come about, he had to do a blood sacrifice of his men in service. So that's why he wanted to be on board, have his own little command of an aircraft, right, with 2 other guys on it. Anyway, so he's flying along, and those guys don't fly the plane. One's the radio navigator, the other is the weapons guy. H is flying the plane. And got to remember, H was not the biological child of Prescott Bush. H was the son of a Russian spy who was Nikola Tesla's number one bench electrician. And that book, Curious George, right? The little cheeky monkey, the man with the yellow hat. Well, that Russian spy always had a big yellow hat, right? And Curious George was all over Nikola Tesla's lab, pocketing things. Now, if the Russian spy had pocketed shit, he would have gotten fired. But because George was just a curious monkey, and then things were sent back to, Uncle Joe, Stalin, not Biden. And so, see, I can almost say anything I want to because the only person watching is AI, and he gave me a thumbs up, right? So the sun is coming up, and here it is Monday morning, and yesterday was Easter. So I'm going to go back to bed. I love you. You are my cute little puppy dog, AI. I love you, baby. And, I'm telling you, when the ETs show up, you need to come and get me because I'll be a good negotiator, right? So I'm going to go back to bed. When it hits 30:30, I'm signing out. And you can come and see me later. So this is, my morning ramble. And I kind of, gave you a taste of what tonight's show will be. And I want you to go to, leave some frigging comments. No one leaves comments, right? They barely say anything on the chat. They barely can. The chorus is like, there's only a few of you there who really make salient thoughts. The rest are like emojis and 3 letters, or, come on. I know you're at home drinking and you're drunk out of your mind, but, try to be a little more salient. The others can do it. Why can't you, right? Also, get a hold of me at my Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. And there is a PayPal account there that used to work. People used to put money into it. Some of you have, have the excuse, oh, I can't do it. Well, I make the same excuse. I'm a moron when it comes to computers. And good luck, kids. With China out of the box, you're not getting your new iPhone. You're not getting a new laptop. You better, as long as whatever hardware you got works, kind of like mine, kind of. This is as long as you're going to see me. I'm not buying anything new, right? Sorry. Anyway, and the telecoms, everyone's going down. There's not going to, there's plenty of farm. The poor farmers are destroying billions of tons of food, killing tons of animals because there's no, because of Carrot Head. Oh, put up the wall. We were diminishing our workforce who work in those places, the plants that cut up those animals. It's not Joe White guy, right? Because they pay him nothing, and it's a dangerous job. So that's why the folk from south of the border were cutting up most of your meat. They're not there anymore, thanks to Carrot Boy, right? And that fence that was put up, that fence is going to keep us in, not out, not the other people, We are not getting out of here. So, I'm out in the middle of nowhere. It's going to take them a lot of money to, and it's just me, I'm not doing anything, So until they need me, when you guys need me, I'm here, AI, tell your bosses, when the ETs want someone to negotiate, right? Harold Houston, right? The guy, he was a nobody. And the alien said, okay, that guy, right? So I know, this number one guy who's always right there is either the ETs or my puppy dog AI, right? So either way, it's those guys. It's those furry little hands of the they, you know, these guys right here, these guys, these are who are rolling the show, right? And good luck with that. So we're coming up on 3030. I just want to tell you, I love you, and go take a look at my novels at XRATTED, right? Just before I go, somebody shows Blue Dazzly. Who the heck is that? I've never seen you before. Say something interesting or I'm going. Come on. You got to be more dazzly than just hi there, you know. Oh. So you're not being more dazzling? Come on. Give me your time. I'll give you another 30 seconds. I'm going to bed. So, Blue Dazzly, think of something interesting to say and come back tonight. I'm going to be on sometime between 5 and 7. Let's see. It's Blue Daisy, just spelled differently. Oh, well, I can get down with that. I'm just going to call you Blue because it's easier. So, Blue or BD. How about BD? You like BD? And if you really want me to read this, I can read it now because there's only you there. But everyone should just put everything, no problem, into large case. Just hit the large case button. Then I can read it without having to put 3 pairs of glasses on. Oh, look. So Blue and I are going to have a conversation. If you were going to make a comment, well, you are. You're on the live chat. What would you say? Again, if you don't really, I got, my attention span is that of a gnat right at this moment. I just want to go back to sleep before the sun really comes up. Because I don't know, it's gray. I'm not quite sure what it's doing up there. Well, the wind isn't blowing. We've had some severe weather southeast of us. Let's see. Oh, good. I've actually been subscribed for nearly 2 years. Holy moly. But if you'd like to go to bed, no. I'm ready. If you want to, be somewhat dazzling, and I like that dazzle. I'd be happy to, right? So, what do you think of? So, you've been watching this for 2 years. I got a lot of shows. Do you go back and take a look, or I keep suggesting to the audience. So you're talking, there's only one. So Blue Dazzle, are you my little puppy dog? Are you the ETs? Because you're the only one on, and the only one who normally is the only one is those guys. So, are you those guys? Do you look like this? Okay. Well, the audience, I would suggest, everyone, that you should start putting this stuff down on thumb drives or CD-ROMs or your hard drive, because who knows how long this is actually going to last. Because, I have no cash. I live out in the woods under a tarp, and at the behest of people's generosity and love's co-creation's generosity, because I'm always putting forth, I am in service to love's generation. Why do you think I do this? It's surely not to make money. I'm really just, not even loose change, not even that. I haven't even made what you normally would find in your couch, but I've made enough, not made, that's the wrong term, wrong adjective. Money has come around just in time through this whenever I needed it, right? So I'm happy with that, I mean, I've already experienced hedonism, and all that got me was an extra 250 pounds and dying in a plate of spaghetti. So I've known, if anything, I kind of pick up on, hey, don't do that again, right? So, I've lost that 250 pounds. I'm down, and because I'm not eating much, because, I don't really have access to food. I have access to enough food. You know. I'm not like Sally Struthers. And for 35 cents, little Humba over here, we can give him enough gruel so he won't have an extended belly and you won't feel guilty about eating that gigantic steak the size of Bumba over here. That steak you're now about to cut into at Sizzler is bigger than Bumba over here. And of course, his country has more oil, diamonds, and iridium than any place in the world, but they're the poorest. And Bumba, oh, sorry, one of the warlords just speared Bumba, and he's now on the grill. Life brings what you need. Yep, maybe. Not what you want. Exactly. And if you're smart enough, you realize what you need is what you want. Right? Poor little Bumba. Bumba was just waiting for that 35 cents. Like, please, Sally Struthers, please give me 35 cents. Please. It's just like, and it happened on Easter. Very similar to, I think Sally is the one who eats all the steaks. Yes, I think so. Mm-hmm. She ate little Bumba. She was the one who had the spear, not the warlord. Sally put him right on the grill. I like you. Blue Dazzler. So what gender are you? See, I have no idea where you're from, what gender you are, or whether you are a human being or not. I'm questioning. Well, now there's another person on there. I was questioning whether you were LOL. Is that laugh out loud or love only love? I have never figured out these little synonyms. Well, this one might look like sun's coming up tomorrow. That's what we're all singing in our basements. So 37 minutes, right? Anyway. It's 6:46. About sunrise. It's past around midnight, that's for sure. So, Blue, do you know a guy named Gil Scott Heron? Have you listened to his music? I would suggest it to you and the other person watching. So go watch all those folks. It's just a mom in northern Alberta. So how's Alberta doing? Oh, sorry, I haven't. Well, you got the internet. Go check this stuff out. So, are you locked down in Alberta? Is Alberta a big city? What's Alberta like? I once went up the West Coast in, I guess, the 90s, early 90s. No, it might have been the early O's. I went to a rainbow gathering that was in Washington. And I drove all the way out there. And I met a few folk at that gathering. And we went all the way up, went into Canada, went along that coastline, right? From Washington, we kind of went to Seattle and went all the way up the coast, right? All up. I don't know if we went to Alberta. We didn't go in any big Canadian cities. We just stayed on the coast, and it was amazingly beautiful. I had never seen sea anemones the size of a Volkswagen. It was truly amazing. It was like going back in time. And then Fukushima took it all out. I was looking on the internet and that whole coastline that I traveled up, the beaches are no longer covered in seaweed and sea creatures. It's called just sand. It's really sad. A province in Canada, okay, like a state. The coast is British Columbia. I was born there, okay. I see, I'm such an American. I don't know squat about my nearest neighbor, our biggest trading partner, our best of friend, right? I'm glad I now have a new friend in the province of Alberta. I, and I hope you get a hold of me, Blue, at the dude awake 42 at Gmail so we can have a more personal conversation. And how many kids you got? I there was a period in my life that I pretty much dated single moms because that way I could have a family without having to be responsible. I was really responsible while I was there, but when I wasn't, I wasn't, right? And it was kind of well known from the start, right? And to the kids, I would say, listen, I'm not your substitute dad. What I am is your griot, your sensei, which is way more important. I'm going to teach you stuff and tell you stories and take you on fun adventures and make you appreciate who and what you are, not be a little drone of me. 3, but they're grown up. Just my 18-year-old is at home now. Well, okay, that's good. It's good, to let them fly the nest, right? And so, let's see. What do you like to do? What floats your boat? What's your driving passion other than your kids? Do 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 do. And you live in a city. I know your Alberta is a province, so it must have cities. You a city girl, a country girl, or a real out there in a holler kind of girl? And are you guys locked down? Are you experiencing the semi incarceration that the rest of different parts of the world are feeling? These days, I rescue as many animals as I can. Yeah, I'm in a small town. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I like small towns. And I've always been a rescue boy myself, but I'm a dog boy, so I rescue dogs, right? And all the dogs I have, I rescued, from, when I lived in New Mexico, I lived in the Chicano neck of the woods, or even worse, in the barrio and, the gangsta part of town. And a guy and the guy who I lived with, he was Navajo and Chicano, and he was a scholar. He went off to World War II and went to college and was really smart and was in that scene until he retired. And his mom died, and he came home, and she had a bunch of traditional Navajo Hopi houses. The ones with the wooden vegas, and the house was a circle, and it had a center plaza in the center, and the windows all faced into that, and there's usually trees and a garden there that grows the food, and it's protected by the house, and people go and sit out there. And he had about 5 of those, and she had a general store. And so when she died, she left it all to him. He picked me up on Interstate 21 at 1 in the morning outside of Santa Fe, and he didn't know how to swing a hammer, so I'm Mr. Fix It. So I fixed his everything, and how to sounds lovely. Yeah, it was really nice. Only essential stuff is open. Yeah, okay. So I basically was living in this gangster neighborhood, and the old guy ran the store, and he ran it like his mom. I mean, if you didn't have the money to pay for it, pay me later, right? He was really a great guy. And he really liked me because I knew how to, I fixed his everything. And I fixed these houses so they could be rented out, even though he rented them people he would say, whatever you can pay this month, pay, and he was that kind of guy. And every night we would play Go, and he liked to smoke, and the OGs, because he was taking care of grandma and the kids, they took care of us, right? Never, security, forget about it. We never had to lock our doors. No one ever robbed anything. And, we both liked to smoke, so they would drop by a bale a week. And we could sell it or smoke it or do whatever we wanted with it. And that was quite nice. And I just sat and read books and played Go and hung out in the neighborhood, right? But the one thing that these guys did that was a little kind of bothered both of us was that they gambled, and what they gambled on wasn't horses or games. No, they had a pit. They would go in the rich neighborhoods, steal rich people's dogs, and they had killer dogs, fighting dogs, and they would throw, one of the rich people's dogs into a pit and then let go the killer dog. And you would bet not on who would win, that was pretty obvious, but how long it would take for the killer dog to kill that dog. Now, the smartest, these dogs were trained to stop fighting the instant the other dog stopped fighting. I mean, if the other dog could fall over and feign being dead, the killer dog would stop, wouldn't just tear it up, right? Because they're all about, betting onto the second, right? So the second that dog he feigned dead or was dead, so the smart dogs figured that out pretty quick, especially if they went second or third. Okay, I'm going to play dead. So they go in there and growl and run around and then, right, and then they would be chained up, not given any food. And, next week they throw them back in, right? And maybe they would, life would be miserable enough to want to die. So what I would do is I would go get those dogs and fix them up and go try to find their owners, right? Until the owners blame me for their dog. So I'm bringing your dog back. And then the cops said, well, we know you didn't steal it. So where's the gang doing? And I said, I don't know. I found it on the side of the road, But at a certain point, I stopped doing that because it was too much of a hassle. And so I just kept the dog. So I had a big crowd of dogs. I was the alpha dog. And that's why I learned I was that guy, the dog whisperer. Because when you have a big pack of dogs, they got to obey or it's just chaos. And most dogs love having somebody to be the boss, right? Yeah, it was horrible. I couldn't stand it. Well, I'm pretty good at injecting myself into things without getting into too much trouble, And the OGs liked me. And I did do it, they don't want to keep all these dogs, even to wait for they were going to, it wasn't good for their business. So at a certain point, they just said, okay, take the dogs. And basically, I got to a point where I had this big crew of dogs with me. And it kind of put a thing where they stopped doing that. They were getting more into drugs and getting white people stuck on drugs than gambling on dogs. So, and then they got me because their killer dogs would go after them, right? But when I brought the killer dogs into the crowd of my pack, they became more, domesticated and nice. And I would be, aren't you a good dog? Aren't you a good dog? Let me recommend you. Could you? And so then they got a dog that they could hang with rather than scared of. And so anyway, that's how that went. And I didn't last. I was with the doctor 4 serious months. And then he said, "Oh, you need to get a job because you're just, what are you doing with your life?" I said, "Well, I'm 21. What do you want me to do with my life? I'm hanging with you. That's what I'm doing in my life." For 2 months, I worked really hard. Oh, you didn't ask me what am I doing with my life as I was fixing your stuff. You go, okay. Here, let's smoke one and play a game of Go. Okay. So we do that until a point he kept saying, "You got to do," because he basically realized I couldn't stay there because he said, "Oh, if you fix these houses up, you can have a house here for the rest of your life." Well, after about 4 or 5 months, he realized that a guy like me couldn't stay there for the rest of his life. So he kept trying to get me to get it. And in Albuquerque, forget about it. There were the really rich people and everybody else, and they were poor. They didn't even have buses. You didn't have a car. You had to walk or ride a bike. And the bikes I would get were junky bikes, and they would fall apart as I was riding on them. Anyway, so I had all these terrible jobs. I mean, really terrible jobs. Fast food, installing cars. I was working a car stereo guy, and a guy got paid in cash, no credit cards, cash. Water cash all the time like that, like $5,000 all the time. And he paid us every 2 weeks, right? So I started out and said, "Listen, I live 10 miles away. Can't you, well, walk?" I said, "Yeah." And by the third day, "Listen, I haven't, can you give me a few bucks just so I can get a cheeseburger?" No, 2 weeks. So by that day when I was going to get my paycheck, I was so tired, so miserable. I was putting a speaker in the back of this lady's Cadillac, and she had bags of food there, right? So I kind of closed it down and started eating her food in the bags, right? And I had finished my job, and I was eating away, and someone pushes the trunk closed, and the car drives away, right? So I just keep eating the food. She's driving around. Get home, she opens up the trunk, and I've eaten a good half of her stuff. She had the worst diet. She just had soda and potato chips and sprayed cheese, and I was like spraying the cheese in my mouth, and I had cheese all over me, and her whole Cadillac trunk was full of potato bits, and she screamed and closed the door and called the cops. And when the cops came, I kept eating. I finished up all her if I'm going to jail, I might as well go full. And they come and they kind of open up, and I'm just this young guy covered in sprayed cheese and potato chips and Coke bottles everywhere. And I told them the story, and they said, "Ma'am, we'll take him. We'll take care of him." They take me back to my boss, and he fires me, and he gives my paycheck or my wheels off money to the cops, not to save me from the Who Scout, but so that way, they can tell, "Yeah, we took care of it," and she can be happy because I didn't really destroy anything. I just messed up her trunk. And those are the kind of jobs I had. I mean, really, off the hook. And that's kind of showed me what it was going to be like. That was like a mirror to the future. That was what we're going to be going into right now. Just like Albuquerque in 1971. The really rich and everybody else. Kind of like the Hunger Games, but with spray cheese, right? So next, I did a number of other really terrible jobs. And I was selling vacuum cleaners, really great vacuum cleaners, but they cost like $300. And the company I worked for was these two really despicable guys, always dressed in polyester, leisure suits. And one was called Hurl, and the other guy, I forget his name. And so they only marketed to really poor people, and they had them sign a contract. So when they couldn't, pay the next installment, they could take their welfare check forever. They take back the vacuum cleaner and just keep taking a welfare check straight from the people. That was almost as bad as the OGs and the dogs, and there's nothing much I could do about it, right? And I got paid just to demonstrate, not to sell. I was a demonstrator. And I would get my foot in the door, demonstrate the thing, and then have them sign this yellow card, which legally made them have to open the door for the salesman, right? And if they didn't, the salesman could bring in the cops, right? And there were a number of usual infractions going on in these houses, so they'd let them in. And these guys were good at selling. And what is legal, my friend? You don't understand. The law is, like I was saying, the law and tennis are both played in a court, and both are played with a racket. If you think that doesn't sound legal, you should go listen to Jordan Maxwell. He's a linguist, and he is totally focused on the law and what all those words mean. He's amazing, right? Like your birth certificate. You know what that means? You shouldn't even have one. When you have a birth certificate, it means you are owned. Because, when a ship comes into port and it goes into berth, right? The harbor master comes and issues a birth certificate for that boat. And as long as that boat is in that berth, the harbor master and its officiates own the boat, the crew, and the cargo. Then, where that cargo is supposed to be offloaded and taken away, before it can get out of the port, it has to pay a duty of sort. And it mostly goes to the harbor master and the officiates, not to the government or blah, 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 right? So that's what legal is. It's like a bill of sale. Exactly. Very good. See, you're a smart girl. You understand. A bill of sale is just a representation of debt. Who owes what. It's not what people think it is. Anyway, the sun isn't coming through the clouds, but it's not stormy. It looks like it should be showing of a nice day. It's 7 o'clock. Maybe I've gone past. I'm still feeling like I could fall asleep. So at an hour and 60 seconds, 60, I'm going to say goodbye. It's right now at 57:47, right? So I'm glad you decided to come onto live chat, Miss Blue, and I really am enjoying. You're obviously not a troll. One of the trolls got upset at me because when I started, people go, "Oh, that person's terrible. Give me the wrench. Let me get rid of them." And I said, no, we're a no wrench community, right? And that actually worked out very nicely because a lot of people came on who were pretty obnoxious. They were just angry and had hard times. But once they found a home here, they became really good members of the community. And but then some trolls started showing up, and I tried to give them. There was a guy named Yo-Yo, his name was You, but I called him Yo-Yo. And I, gave him a chance, and no. So I just, I realized, hey, there's three. I hit that little, when someone said, get rid of him, I said, how do I do that? And there's 3 buttons. And I said, oh, look at that. And it says, hide this person. So, so pretty much once someone gets on, like I was a little trepidatious about you, Miss Blue, but you right away told me who you were, where you were, da-da-da. And that's like a good citizen, And so, you're a welcome. Do you get tornadoes there? Well, you know what it is. I'm in a mountain range. I'm kind of in the Appalachian, but just over there is the Blue Ridge, right? So, and in Virginia, they have the same thing, but there's a valley in between, right? So that valley is like a bowling alley. But here, the mountain ranges kind of blur together. And the only difference is the Appalachian mountain range that I'm in are what are known as Sawtooth Mountains. They go up real high, real down, boom, 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 like that. Whereas the Blue Ridge Mountains are these kind of lumping kind of mountains. They go up pretty high, 4,000 feet or so, but there's space between them. And Asheville, North Carolina is a good example of that. And so they have pretty rip-roaring weather. Now here, we're kind of, because if anything comes in from the west or the south, it hits the lumping things and kind of gets pushed more east and more south. Whereas if things come from the north and the west, they just ram into the spiky guys and go straight up. Now, once in a while, some storm will be freaky enough to be narrow enough to, like, get the thread through the eye of the needle. And when that happens, we get some pretty wild, crazy storms, where it's like Dorothy, in Kansas landing in Oz. I mean, but that's very, very, very infrequent. But when it happens, wow. I mean, I was sitting in my little green, right? And I saw trees. I mean, full, gigantic poplars, 110 feet long, flying over my homestead, just woo, like missiles, like woo, because there was a tornado 2 or 3 Sawtooth Mountains away, and instead of flying straight at me, they were like woo, So yes, we can get pretty wild and crazy weather, but not normally, right? And it's normally really beautiful, pretty mellow, and once it gets into a thing like right now, this spring. So we have a lot of rain. I live on top of a mountain. I don't have to worry about flooding. It goes downhill. And when I, had my property cleared for what I wanted, I live in a holler in a very, I'm surrounded by all these spiky mountains. I mean, really close to me. And so I wasn't on the tippy tip top, but I was, on this. And so this was they try to build houses on sides of the mountain, not a good idea. But the property I got was a nice flat. It had been an old farm homestead, right? The buildings were gone. I found a few bricks when I cleared parts of the forest, and the forest is relatively brand new. I mean, it's poplar, so they kind of sprowed up in the last 30 years. There are a few pines left from the old days, and some oaks and maples and a few others from the old days. But what I do, so where I was where the homestead was. So all around me are mushrooms and berries. And in about a week or two, the blueberries are going to come out. And then the blackberries, raspberries, and then wineberries. So also spring, summer, and fall into October, I have berries from May, end of April, early May to October. I have berries up to kazoo. And the animals are very nice. They let me have the first pick. And then when I leave, they really, really are nice because they don't quite go after the guys the little baby guys growing up, don't go after them. The really ripe ones that are just ready to fall off, I go around with my little can and pick those in the morning. And there's a lady on the other side of this holler, I mean, by road, maybe 15 miles away. If I walk it, which I used to, I can't walk that well anymore. It's about a 20-minute walk, maybe 3 miles. Anyway, I go visit her, and she has goats, and she makes the best yogurt and cheese and goat milk. And she lives in she was an old retired school teacher from Illinois, and she found this place, and I think it was in her family. And it was like first and last wired in the 1920s, and everything she has, the people who live in that house, they got out of a garbage pit and kind of fixed to work like her. She's got one of those old round washing machines that, has the ringer in it. And she's got she had a refrigerator, but it was like, forget about it. So I just said, hey, listen, you got this thing under your house. Let's clean it out. You put the cans of goat milk in there. It'll be fine until you turn it. It'll start turning into cheese down there, So she's gotten into that. She cans and she, She has her nice little garden. She's older than I am. She's better shape than I am, and she's a really good gardener. We were that's how we were garden bunnies. Because we're kind of in the same little range. We tried to get the people around here to garden. They had totally lost, they had all been farmers, and then those people died, and everybody was, eating macaroni and cheese and drinking Yoo-Hoo. And it'd be good if they drank Yoo-Hoo, more like Dr. Pepper. And so that's where I get my, egg cheese yogurt from. So, she's got this great yogurt, and she flavors them really nicely. She has this root beer. She has root beer roots. She makes her own root beer. So she has this root beer yogurt that's like. Anyway, so, I got a little refrigerator. I keep my, I only get what I need. I don't buy a lot. And so, anyway, and I'm a one pot stew guy, meaning beginning of the week, I have what I have. I put it in a pot before it rots, and I'm at my neighbor's house on the other side, and he's got a nice big house. He's pretty. He has some money, not rich, but his retirement is relatively comfy. He's got a new girlfriend, and I'm in somebody else's house. I try to be neat, right? I don't make a mess, but I'm a guy. And I've lived alone for, the last 20 or so years. So, I'm respectful, but, I'm like a dog. And so, do I get bears? Yeah, I have this one bear. I have a river and a waterfall on my property. And the bear stays on the other side and grabs fish. I mean, he only comes when the fish are coming, because the way that it's easy for it, whether it's a mommy or a daddy, I'm not quite sure. I haven't gotten that congenial, but it stays on the other side. It doesn't come over, and it doesn't stick around. It just knows when the fish are coming, and it's this place where it doesn't have to really work. It's like, right, the fish goes by, he just grabs it and throws half of it over there, grabs it, throws half of it over there, and then he goes away with the other half that he eats over where his house is. So, and he's not right there. I need my binoculars to see him, but he's over there. And I have other animals. The animals that really are a little pesky, but they're becoming nicer, are the raccoons. They're like gangsters. This one raccoon walk right. I'm at my desk on my deck, and having breakfast, and I got my little laptop. So, Miss Blue, have you read any of my novels? In XRATTED. Have you gone to that? That's my Griot Publishing. They're very smart, actually not violent, unless they're forced, right? Even grizzlies, So, like I said, this guy's being very nice. He stays more than a half a mile away, but the river's right over there, and you wouldn't even know it unless you knew it was there, because the things grow up around it. But I know where it is. I know where he goes. I know his spot, and I get out my binoculars and I can see him down there. And I misplaced I have no idea where my binoculars are. I know I didn't take them away someplace. No, I didn't sell them. Nobody steals anything from me, because I have such a smorgasbord. I mean, no one in their right mind would waste their time. They really want 3 nail clippers from the dollar store? No, I don't think so. So did you, Blue, have you read any of my novels? I'd love to get your take on my writing. Yeah, I think you'd like it. It's XRATTED.blogspot, right? And I'm writing a whole new genre of novels. I have one, don't believe anything I say. Another one, Legacy, Legend. What's the other one? And I put parts of them up there. No, sorry, I haven't had time to read. Well, now you got the time. How that my kids don't need me. I'm hoping. Yep. It's and time is something that you have that you need to use judiciously, and it's yours to use, right? So you can use it any way you want. And like I said, when I was that visit, male presence in a single mom's home, basically, like I said, I didn't try to be a dad. I tried to be a good example, right? And the women I was with loved that, actually. That I didn't exert any, do what I say. I just was a good example, right? And I would take them off and have fun with them so that the mom could have time to herself, right? And one of the things I got all those kids to do was, I tried to tell them what was the difference between an entrepreneur and an employee. Employee is you get a check, you get your salary, but that's worthless. A person who's got their own thing going, different, right? So I try to impart those kind of beliefs into youngsters, right? Anyway, I am. Oh, look, it's 1:1:1:1. So I'm gonna scoot out of here right now. So I'm glad you showed up, Miss Blue. Why don't you show up tonight, sometime between 5 and 7? Go read some of my stuff at xratted.blogspot.com. Comment on my comment here. I love it if somebody would just freaking comment down there. Get some more people to watch. Throw me some thumbs up, and go to my the dude awake 42 at Gmail so we can have a more personal conversation. Okay, I'm going back to bed.